This is The Shift, Stories of Resistance and Resilience, a multi-platform conversation series produced and hosted by Mark Travis Rivera, the professional storyteller. I believe that we must embrace the power of stories to create a more inclusive world. So this series aims to share perspectives, insights, and stories from professionals around the world about the role that resistance and resilience plays in our personal and professional lives. So, tune in, listen up, take notes, and recognize our shared humanity. This is The Shift. And I created The Shift. This is year 3 now. We're starting season 3 of The Shift. Once I went full-time entrepreneur in 2023, to create a series that would help people talk about professional and personal issues as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, holistic inclusion, belonging, and leadership. And I decided that we needed to have a new format. Clearly, the new format is giving me anxiety and angina, but we'll figure that out. And a new theme for this year, given the recent political election results that saw a convicted felon reelected to a second term as president non-consecutively. The Shift, again, is a mostly live conversation series, mostly weekly, 3 times a month. And we're shifting to a new time this year, 12 p.m. Eastern, to give our friends in England, the UK, a better time frame to join us, and to give our early risers an opportunity to catch us, and to give you people on the East Coast a lunch hour time frame to join us. There will be a recording available for you all, which is super exciting. And, as we think about what a second Trump presidency was going to look like in the US and around the world, I wanted to take a second to help us all reconnect to each other through storytelling, to recognize our shared humanity. As we see an effort around the globe to roll back human rights. And I am so excited to be joined by my guest, who's part of the Shifters community. He's been as an attendee and first time as a speaker or a guest. And so I'm going to read his bio and get started. He is a husband, father, friend, author, humanity practitioner, and disruptor of the status quo. John Graham Jr. connects the dots between history and the modern day lived experiences of the historically underestimated through his book, Plantation Theory, The Black Professional Struggle Between Freedom and Security. Featured in some well-known publications and credentialed by some well-known institutions, he's humble, so he doesn't include those names in his bio. What's most important is his belief in the potential of humanity when human nature gets out of the way. He currently serves as the VP of Employer Brand, Humanity, and Culture at Shaker Recruitment Marketing, and he's my guest today on The Shift. Hello, John. Welcome, and thank you for all your help with the tech issues.
Look, no, this is what we do. This is what community looks like, right?
Wow.
It may not be pretty, but we get it done. So
Yes.
pleasure to be with you, Mark. Thank you so much for having me and
Yes,
the
thank
fellow
you.
shifters. Yes.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
so we always, as you may remember, we always start off with who are you outside of your professional highlights that I read in your bio. I know
Yeah.
you're a father and a friend, but do you want to elaborate on anything that I shared there?
Yeah, I think I'm a consummate Virgo, September 8th, for all those out there into astrology. So whatever you take from that, positive experiences or negative with fellow Virgos, I'll say I'm rooted in reality. I'm grounded, but I dream big. I often describe myself as somebody who's like a GPS leader. Like I know the destination, but I count on and trust others to help navigate and get us to the point of destination. I believe in the power of understanding history as a guidepost and navigator for present and future, especially when it comes to the histories of Black folks in America, within the construct of the past six or 700 years worth of history, post transatlantic slave trade. So, and how that applies to our modern day lived experiences. And so, yeah, I love comedy. I love a good movie and vegging out, doing nothing to relax my always on brain. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot I could go into. You know,
Are you into comedy specials or comedy TV shows? Because I feel like that's a different.
stand up. I'm more of a stand up. Yeah, stand up guy for
I
sure.
saw Michelle Buteau's Netflix special. She was the first female comedian, a black woman, to host a comedy special at Radio City Music Hall.
Yes,
And
yes,
she was hilarious, in my opinion. But
yeah.
also, she talked about some really important things and called some people in about how you don't have to make fun of people to be funny, right? And I thought that was really powerful.
Sure.
So I want to go into that was not an advertisement, by the way. She doesn't even know. I'm just I saw
She
it and
sent a check already. Yeah.
that is not an ad. Hashtag not an ad.
Right.
But I want to kick off this conversation. You're the first person to be interviewed in this new format, this new theme. And so the questions are a little bit different this year around. But I want to start off with this question, which will be asked of every guest that comes after you, which is what is your personal uh, concept of resistance and resilience?
Yeah. So thank you for that added pressure of having to set the bar for everybody there after me. I'll do my best, Mark. Look, resistance. I'll start with resistance. I believe that you know how you resist should be highly personalized, right? I don't think that there's a one size fits all because you have to play into your strengths when it comes to what is it you're resisting. The other thing is, I think we have to be very clear on resistance is a act of discomfort unto itself,
Mm,
right? So you can't comfortably bring about change, right? There's been no revolution that happened in comfort, right? And so there's been no shift or movement towards the positive or the balancing of power or the change and exchange of power that's been comfortable.
mm,
So I think resistance first is a mindset of accepting what is and then figuring out what can be. And then what are the ways that you can push that change in a way that doesn't, risk it all for you, right? Know the balance between freedom and security. And figure out what that means and what that looks like and what impact you can make within that. So I'll start there. And you can always look to history and see how people coordinated, what were the efforts of success, what failed miserably,
mm.
and borrow from those success points. Resilience is an interesting one for me because I think that's been a concept that's been pushed a lot lately, especially when it comes to historically underestimated and marginalized communities. And resilience, I think, the ability to bounce back, right? To take the hit, to push on in the face of adversity, that is a necessary and admirable quality to have. I also believe that we should try to avoid the hits,
Yeah.
right? As much as possible. So to accept that it's happening and then not change, I think is an issue for me.
Mm,
So I don't use resilience as a compliment, right?
mm.
I think that resilience is a muscle built in the face of extreme adversity and a necessity for survival, not something that we should celebrate. We should celebrate when the conditions causing the resilience are no longer there.
And I love that you say that because I think I was born premature. So my relationship with the word resilience has been an ongoing one mixed with gratitude that I was able to be resilient through the circumstances of my birth and I survived weighing 1 pound after being born at 5.5 months and developing a disability called cerebral palsy and other conditions. And also recognizing that, like, yeah, I'm grateful I survived. Obviously, I'm alive. I'm thriving. I'm weighing way more than 1 pound these days. But I wish I didn't have to endure that in order to be here, right? Because the trauma that my body, literal body, endured in order to survive has left me with a lifetime condition that is not often talked about as we age. And also, as a disabled person who was born disabled, I know that I live in a world that praises us for being strong and adaptable to an ableist society, but we often don't think about like the human toll that we have to deal with as a result of having to navigate a world not designed with us in mind from a physical
That's right.
accessibility standpoint beyond. But I also think you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned this really important aspect, which was the discomfort piece of resistance. So yesterday I posted a reel about Carrie Underwood, who I've been a huge fan since I was in middle school. Most of my life I've been having her music on heavy rotation. Three of my on repeat tracks on Spotify are of her music. And it was announced yesterday through the Hollywood Reporter that she's performing at Trump's inauguration. And so I posted a video saying how disappointed I was and that I unfollowed her on social media and streaming, and I'm no longer going to listen to her music. And that brought out all the far right folks. I'm not even gonna call them
Sure.
MAGA. I don't know if they the word. They didn't say MAGA. Some of them didn't say MAGA per se. One person said "Make America Great Again." But we are often, I think, what's happening is people are forgetting historically that resistance has always caused discomfort for all of us, whether we were actively participating in it or not, right? Think about the civil rights movement leading the boycott on the buses, right? And discomfort that it meant people had to walk miles and miles and miles because they refused to take the bus, right? And that helped lead to change. You think
Sure.
about, gay rights and how it took the Stonewall riots to really implode before we start to get gay rights on the political scene. And so, excuse me, the right to be gay without fear of persecution, right?
That
Because
part.
it's not gay
Yeah.
right, it's the right to exist and be human and love who we love. Um, but you also think you alluded to, and I think I want to ask you more about this, especially as
Yeah.
someone who has black women in your life, love black women, and I do too.
hmm
Um, Not enough to marry one, but enough that I love them. I'm paying
Guilty
hell.
as charged. Yeah.
But but
Yes.
I love my sisters, black and brown ones especially, all of them. Uh, and so I want to ask you this because I think there is this trope that black women have been carrying democracy and the Democratic Party on their backs for eons, and it shouldn't be that way, right?
Okay.
The onus shouldn't be on black women to save our democracy. And yet, time and time again, they show up at the polls at higher percentage rates than most women, and they vote in support of democracy and our human rights. What happens to a person who is constantly having to be perceived or is being projected as being super strong, superhuman?
Yeah. That was an easy question you asked there, Mark.
No, that
That's
wasn't on the list. That was a follow up question from
that
something.
that was a great look. So here's the thing, right? There's the weight and the pressure that black women have bared. That's probably the wrong word. Have been forced to carry, I'll say, and that can ultimately lead to the dehumanization, right? Because you don't think about the toll that takes not only on the body but the spirit, the psyche, over time. You just expect them to carry those loads, and they're tired. Right? They are tired. I also want to juxtapose that with the weight that black men have carried as well,
Hmm.
right? And this is to take no credit, no shine, and not to pit against each other. But I want to have a conversation rooted in reality. Black women, by the numbers, certainly show up to the polls, have carried democracy. I also want to suggest that this is not something that can be done alone, right?
Right.
It requires a we mentality. So I think the narratives that I heard, and I was in DC the night of the election, and I was at a speaking engagement the day after,
Mm.
and the audience was largely black women, and the energy of sort of defeat, disillusionment, genuine concern and fear was apparent, but there was also this sense, and I was hearing this for the first time in quite a while, that maybe it's time that we actually started doing something together, working together, right? This isn't an us versus us situation.
Yeah.
And so I think that moment in time last year was a wake up call for a lot of folks.
But I also want to add, and this is coming from the
Please,
Black Male
please.
Initiative out of the state of Georgia. So BMI Georgia just posted this, and I don't know the guy's name. I just stumbled upon their Instagram account earlier this morning as I
Okay.
was getting ready for the day. And I started reviewing some of their content, and obviously, I believe Black Male Initiative is an offshoot. Georgia is an offshoot of Obama's Black Male Initiative BMI when he was president, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what it
My
is.
brother's keeper.
My
Yeah.
brother's keeper, right? That initiative, the BMI, and there are different versions of that in higher education institutions all over the nation.
Sure.
Think of the one at John Jay, Urban Male Initiative, for example.
Sure.
One of the things that he said was they tried to pit us against black women and pit us against each other. But when you look at the data shows that the second largest turnout and group in support of Kamala Harris were black men.
Right. So that is a big conversation to be had around the dynamics of dividing black men and women, which we can argue starts at the point of transatlantic slavery. However, it kicked into highest gear in around 1978. There's a direct correlation between that year and the decline of the marital rate in the black community from being the highest of any racial group at 85% to now in 2025 hovering at 30%.
Yeah.
There was concerted efforts, right? Whether it's war on crime, drugs, poverty, welfare programs requiring black men not to be present or no man in the house present in order to receive benefits,
Yeah.
social narratives, media, perception of black men, the tropes of like there's so much that has gone towards dividing black men and women. To see that trigger, that mechanism used last year for the benefit of breaking up the voting power showcases how strong and how powerful they know we can be
Yeah.
when we're working together. So there's a
Yeah.
lot to unpack in that, and there's a lot of things that
And
we need to heal through as well.
absolutely, and I would be remiss if I didn't call out my own community as a Latino, as a Puerto Rican, Spanish Caribbean man, about
Yeah.
how the Latino vote, in particular men, drastically swung to Trump's favor. And it's ironic because I can already hear people online in the Latinx community. And to be fair, being Latinx does not mean we're monolithic, right?
Yeah.
There's a very different cultural connection to African diaspora as a Caribbean Spanish speaking person versus someone who might be from Mexico or Central America or South America, right? There is a difference between how as a Puerto Rican, I'm perceived as light skinned versus how my sister is perceived as an Afro Latina who's a black Puerto Rican, right? And how she's perceived, especially when she visits me in the South. She thinks it's so hilarious because she's like, up north, she's not unique. She's like, I'm brown, I have freckles, I'm, you know, womanly, to say it for lack of a better phrase. And she's
Yes.
fluent in Spanish, and her name is
Right.
and her last name is Martinez. And when she comes down here, they're like, "We know you ain't white, but you look darker than just the Latinas we're used to, and you look like we don't know what you are, right?" And
Right.
so that level of dissonance that happens, right? And so it's interesting when I think about how so historically of all the things that white supremacy culture has robbed from us as people of color, I think it's our communal way of living. And the reason why this system has been able to continue to thrive for centuries is not because there's not enough of us versus them. We are now the majority in this country. It is because the system did such a great job at dividing us and creating that crabs in a barrel mentality that we have taken on this individualistic way of being, but we were never meant to be individualistic in our way of being. That African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, right? This idea that in Latinx culture it's not uncommon to have multiple generations under one household or in one street
Right.
block. When I grew up in Miami, when I was younger, born in Wynwood, I had my grandma's house. My aunt was across the street in the apartment building, and then next to her unit was my other aunt, and my great grandmother and my great aunt lived in the. Like we ran in packs like wolves, right? We ran in packs, and for better or for worse, right? I always say it was helpful when you were being bullied, when you had a whole bunch of first cousins around.
That's
Uh,
right.
and so, but also not helpful when some of us were being knuckleheads and we all got kind of caught up in it. But I say all
Yeah.
that to say, we're not, this is not a us versus them thing, right? It is, we need, I think that's what we need to come together
Hmm.
across identity, across even religious or socioeconomic status or beliefs to recognize that collectively we as people of color, we as the underestimated group in this country, have more power and more influence if we come together, right? Than if we continue
Yeah.
to in a fragmented way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think anybody would argue that. It's a brilliant and beautiful point. One of the things I see, I do a speaker session on the psychological theory called social dominance theory
Mm,
and social dominance orientation. And high level of it is social dominance theory essentially explains that human beings in groups form societies based on hierarchies, right? They naturally occur, and this take out race as a construct because it's made up. But if you look at it, hierarchies in communities or societies generally start at age, right? So we can all agree that older people have more authority, agency, power, control than younger people in a society. Well, also, elderly people get marginalized in that construct too, right? And especially in a Western construct where if you're not able to be productive, your value to the group is
diminished.
seemingly lower.
Yeah.
So right about that middle age is where you have the most power. Then it goes to gender. So men, women, men dominant, women subordinate group in this theory. That tends again middle-aged men. And then you get into the third group, which is called arbitrary set. And so this is where you get all of those made up constructs: nationality, race, orientation, religion, all of these things, right, that get assigned to you. And then a value is made on those. Point being, when you are in the subordinate group, and what they found through these studies is that people in the subordinate group desire to be in the dominant group. And
Mm,
if you have the ability to transition from subordinate to dominant group, most people take that, right?
yeah.
However, that comes with the willingness and acceptance of the requirements of the dominant group. So what tends to happen is when you go from subordinate group to dominant group, you shed the subordinate group identity and dismiss it altogether as if that's not your people,
Well,
right?
and we see that a lot in the Latinx community as well when it comes to assimilation of whiteness, right?
Everybody does it. And that's the point.
Oh, yeah, everyone does it, but I'm just talking about young people because
For
those are my,
sure.
I'm talking about South
Yeah.
Florida. I'm talking to Florida Latinos in particular. For those of you who live in Florida, this is for y'all.
Watch out for
You're
these strays.
right. Yes, I'm from Jersey. We keep it real. I may have been born in Miami, but I was raised in Jersey, so I got a Wendy
New
Williams,
Jersey Drive.
the Jersey, the North Jersey especially, because there's a difference
Oh,
between South Jersey and North Jersey.
that's
But
facts.
we won't talk
Yes.
about that today. But with all that being said, and I think this is really important. I know that we lost some time today, so I apologize for the tech issues. But I want to ask
Yeah.
you this question
Yeah.
because you alluded to it a few minutes ago. Because there is so much happening in the world, because there is so much that we're trying to strip and and navigate in this complex system. Some of us are feeling super fatigued, disempowered, as you had mentioned in the days following the election, and afraid of what is to come in the years ahead. How, in your opinion, do we balance the resistance with the rest we need to endure?
Yeah. Well, so I think you have to be very conscious of your your limits and your limitations physically, because if you don't have your health, then you are of no assistance to the broader group, right? You have to be in a position to help in order to be able to help.
Mm,
So one thing I think we also have to be conscious of is the mental fatigue, right? Rest is not just a matter of sleep. It's
mm,
also a matter of giving your mind time and space away from constant consumption of things that keep you on edge, right? And it's no accident that the algorithms on our various social platforms are attuned, even incentivize negative energy, right? It's greed, it's fear, it's anger, it's hate, it's envy, it's jealousy, it's all of these things that drive the worst in people, which keeps us stuck in an attention economy, which is the value proposition, right? We are monetized off of our attention. So resting and resilience as part of a resistance strategy requires you to also be conscious of what you consume, both physically, right, from sustenance and nutrients and food, to also your content consumption. The things that keep feeding the same echo chamber of negative energy takes its toll on your psyche, which then has physiological effects. The other thing I also want to be very clear about is that, you know, if you are battling from a subordinate group position, trying to change the dominant group, just know that discomfort is baked into that.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a comfortable revolution, right?
Mm.
It's never happened. And also something that's
Let's say that again, because that was such a powerful line.
look, there is no such thing as a comfortable resolution. The reality is there is no group of high powered, high position or privilege or status group of people throughout the entirety of human history that have ever given those things up willingly. Like let's just be real about that. There's nobody who's ever said, you know what, I've got enough.
Yeah.
Y'all have some.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't happened, right? So let's be conscious of that.
I also think about January 6th was a result of that, right? Trump was so enamored by the power of the presidency that he attempted to overthrow the very government he swore to protect, the very democracy and constitution he swore to protect, right? And so when
Sure.
you think about, you know, power is a hell of a drug, right? And some of the best leaders I've had in my career prior to going full-time entrepreneur have been those who recognize that with the great Spider-Man quote, with great
With
power
great power comes great responsibility. Yeah.
and Marvel hands down is the best ever. So for all you DC fans out there, it's okay. We'll talk about that separately. I'm not even
More
gonna ask you.
strays. More strays.
I'm not even gonna ask you if you're a DC or Marvel guy. Which one you are? I'm gonna just
I have a Black Panther figurine behind
okay.
me off screen. So yes, I'm Marvel.
Okay,
But I have my
great.
DC moments. I have DC moments.
TV shows are better, but that's a sidebar. Their TV shows are better, but
Christian
we'll talk
Bale,
about
Michael
that.
Keaton, Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah. Look, it's power is a hell of a drug, but really, human nature defaults to comfort. Right?
Mm.
Just think about this. In our everyday life, the amount of technology we use, technology as a tool, is designed to make hard things easier.
Unless
The
the
creature
technology is
comforts.
hard to navigate.
Unless you're trying to do a live stream on time. Like that's the only time technology does not make life easier. But even that, imagine us trying to have this conversation without the internet.
Yeah.
Without right, we'd have to do this in a town square and gather people in real time, and that's limiting. And hopefully, they take that message to their next town over. Like this,
Yeah.
but we do a lot of the things that we do are driven based on our maintenance of comfort. So when you have all of the access, the power, control, resources can impose your worldview, ideals, and beliefs on the masses to suit your world, then who would want to give that up?
Mm.
That's literally why they fight wars, right? Because two people who have all the resources want more, right? There's never been a multi-billionaire who says, you know what, I think I hit my limit, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
You always want more. There's always something else. And that's, look, the inability to find enough is a big problem in a consumption driven
Yeah.
culture, right? And that's a personal choice. We all have to figure out what is our enough,
Yeah.
because then that also dictates what are you willing to do to get more and what aren't you.
Right. And, so it goes back to my point around Carrie Underwood. I mean, when I tell you my heart dropped when I saw that post because like her first album is one of the best debut albums of any American Idol winner in my opinion. And that from back in the day I could only hear on a CD player. Okay, that's how long I've been a fan of her music. So I remember like it was yesterday. Had my CD player. Some Hearts, her debut album was on there. I wore that thing out. That's how much I played it up. Back I can like
Sure.
Like I knew the lyrics, and so and that album is on it was on heavy rotation. And yesterday, I had made the choice that I was going to start using my role in capitalism to show that there's consequences when you choose to engage in this autocrat's behavior in some way. And she, as someone who's been trying so hard to be apolitical in her career, but everyone has a choice to be made. Everyone has a choice to make, right? And you made a choice to perform somewhere and to be paid to do so. When you're just getting that American Idol check as a judge this season, like I'm not worried about your paychecks. I know you have other bags and other coins coming in. You're choosing to opt into this, whether you say it's for the money or because everyone has the right to believe in what they believe in. That's fine. I have the right not to stream your music. I have the right not to buy your music. I have the right not to go to your concert. And so, and as uncomfortable as little middle schooler in me is, the inner child in me is sad that someone he's appreciated for so long is no longer someone he can engage with. That is a choice I'm making, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask
Yeah.
me to go to Amazon because someone who doesn't drive, I need my packages delivered to me for instantly. Okay, there are certain things I can't give up. Right, my book is sold through Amazon, right, and just
That's yeah.
can't give up for practical reasons. And there are other things that I don't shop at Walmart, right? I choose to shop at Target versus Walmart. I try to buy more local owners when it comes to clothing and support small businesses.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I try to do in order to um, play my small role in making a better world. Um,
Yeah.
I want to ask you this last formal question
Okay.
before we go to the last question, which
Because I want
is
to come back to Carrie, by the way. I need to speak
oh,
to your
oh,
inner
sorry,
child.
complicated. No, I know
But
you live in Texas. Go ahead.
we'll go back. Oh
No,
no, no. I'm not that deep in my tenure as a Texan to defend Texas yet. But
okay.
I'm 2.5 years in, y'all. I'm getting there. I still haven't gotten my boots, my hat, my belt buckle. Just give me time.
Uh-huh.
Moving from LA, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Look. This is so I'll put Carrie Underwood here, and I'll put Mark Zuckerberg here, and then I'll show you how they connect. Right? However you feel about those two names I just said for whatever reasons. Carrie Underwood is an employee of a record label, right? Guaranteed, somebody from the inauguration committee says, we want these lists of entertainers. Here's the label. They call label, say, here's who we want. Label says, guess what, Carrie, you're going to perform. Carrie might have deep feelings of misalignment with who she's performing for, but she's an employee. Could she say no? Maybe. Could that have impacts on every other aspect of her career? Absolutely. So that's a label decision, guaranteed, head to head. Here's the connection. Mark Zuckerberg, 2016, 17 bans Trump from Facebook for misinformation, all the other things, right? A lot of the
Yeah.
2025 now removes fact checking, right? Causes a huge storm, makes him look like whatever. But don't you think that as the head of one of the largest companies, let alone tech companies in the world, that there's somebody who is in a position of power that has legislative impact on your business, you're going to play ball? And this is why I try and take all of the personalities and emotions out of it. The construct was never designed with humanity in mind. They don't care.
Oh, Oprah would
This
say
is
tweet moment. When
business.
you frown, I would say that's a tweet moment.
There's
Uh,
bars, right?
yeah.
These are bars. It was not designed with humanity. It is designed to save itself at all costs and to remain viable and profitable. So whoever's in office, if there's legislation that will either hurt or help, guess who they're voting for? Both of them anyway. And
Yeah.
when the one bet that they place that hedged the other one wins, well, guess what? You're going to have to make some concessions if you want said legislation to pass.
Yeah.
And that's what we see. So I try to again, if we fall into the emotional connection to the figurehead, the entertainer, the athlete, the whomever, that removes the fact that they are agents of an employer who pays their livelihoods.
Yeah, and you're right. And to be fair,
And that's
she
not a knock to your inner child because you should feel how
no,
you feel.
no, my inner child is still weeping.
Sure.
But you're right. But what I think is really important is that, and we'll talk more about this next week with Yvonne Alston, who she and I will be talking. The focus of that conversation will focus on how it's not so black and white, and that's very nuanced, and that we have people in our circle of influence who voted for Trump or who voted for Trump but don't align with his MAGA extremism. And there are some people in my family who are MAGA, right? And so having to navigate the nuance of these things and having to hear the opinions of people who disagree with me fundamentally, who say they love me, but voted for a man who is dead bent or dead set on rolling back my human rights as a gay person, right? And so that's complicated. And you're right. There's a piece of us that have to take away the human aspect, the human emotional aspect of it, right? And recognize like people are very much influenced by the price of eggs and groceries. And I told my one relative, who's a relative through marriage, I said to her, I said, listen, you're putting economics above human life, and that is not the way I live my life. Because I know the economies historically have always gone up and down. You
Sure.
know what can go up and down? Once they're gone, a human life is flat lines, right?
It's
And
facts.
so I'm gonna value human life and the right to exist without fear or harassment over the cost of eggs. Does it mean that I'm rationing my eggs? Hell yeah, it means I'm rationing my eggs because that shit's expensive, right? And I'm a
And I
single
like
person,
eggs.
and I like eggs. And I feel bad for all my friends and colleagues who have children, especially those children who don't seem to be an endless pit of eating, because I go
Bruh.
shopping by single self, and I'm
Right.
like, damn, I just spent
It's
$20 at Costco for a single person. I can only imagine what my friends with kids are going through, and let alone my friends who are married and have two adults in the house. And so, yeah, I feel for you, John. It is not easy. So
pray
bless
for me.
your,
Pray for me.
as the Southerners folks have taught me, bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Oh
Bless
my
your heart.
God.
Um,
It's
yeah,
economics. Yeah.
comics.
Profit over people. Look, it depends on what your bias is, right? Are you biased towards the collective or are you biased towards the individual? A lot of people are biased towards themselves. And I think that again is human nature.
But
And
it's not. I don't think it's human nature to those of us who have been historically underestimated because I don't think
eh,
I don't think I think when I think about indigenous cultures, native cultures, I think about Latinx communities
sure.
that I've grown up, at least in my lifetime, my experience, we're very communal,
In a
right?
Western construct, that was the caveat. In a
Yes,
Western
in a,
construct,
yes,
individualism is
in a
the
Western,
the
yeah,
bias.
it's the default. It is the default for a lot of people, I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
But also, let's not ignore that even in the community of indigenous people, there's always some in that village or in that community that were like, man, F this village.
Yeah,
I want more, right? And you had infights, you had power struggles, you had neighboring, right? These we don't escape these regardless of our cultural
right,
origins.
right,
Human nature and the need to survive is
yeah,
that's as old as time for us.
yeah.
To what extent is it expressed in negative and for the benefit of the collective versus the individual is what we're talking about here. So,
Yeah,
but I'm sorry, I know
absolutely.
you have another question. Please.
It's the last question, and I'm so sad that our time is almost up because I feel like I can talk to you for hours because you're just that brilliant and you have set the bar
Well,
really,
let's keep
really
going.
high.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people in my life, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's what I love to do. I love talking to people. I have a background in journalism. My dream is to one day be the first openly gay Latino to be a daytime talk show host, and I want to be
And so it will be.
A mix of Oprah meets Williams, meet Tamron Hall, meets, you know, Ricky Martin. I don't know, some kind of like Ricky Lake, like that kind of
Oh,
mix of all the things,
okay.
right? All the flavors of,
Let's go.
and so I love talking to people. It's what I and people often think of me because I'm such a big personality or because I'm often on stages as not a great listener. But I think I'm actually, I don't think I know, and I've been told this by clients and friends, I'm a great listener. And it's because when I listen to people speak, I'm not listening to just respond, I'm listening to understand. There's a deep, active listening going on. And I'm like absorbing everything you're saying, and my brain is like racing. It's like, I have a million more follow up questions, and there's time is running out, but we have to ask this final question. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just want to thank you first and foremost for such an engaging and energizing conversation. I feel like this is like the dopamine high that I needed to get up and start my
Hey,
day. And so I want
thank
to
you.
ask you this as we wrap up. And this is the question I'm going to ask every guest at the end. So the first two questions, the last question will be asked of every guest.
Okay.
So, what do you hope to shift in society through your work? Because you do some amazing work, and so I
Thank
want to
you.
know what do you hope to shift.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what I center on in any of my work is let me backstop this. A lot of people come to a conversation seeking answers.
Mm.
I come to the conversation seeking to provoke better questions. I think far too often people have access to information they don't use anyway. They don't, they have more access to information than anyone in human history, but nobody's taught us to ask the right questions. Right? What do you do when you have something that can answer anything for you and you still can't find the answer?
Mm.
Well, you have to revert back to the question you're asking. So I always bring information in a way that challenges what you've been taught or what you haven't been exposed to so that you can start to question the thing that you took as automatic and assumed to be, right? The only way or the only thing or the only narrative. So I shift regularly my comfort level with what's accepted and assumed. I seek to help others live in that as well. So that way we can certainly get to better answers. Right?
Yeah.
That's what better questions lead to.
Yeah. Wow. I have like 1,000 more. We might have to have you
We can come back. We can
I'm
do
gonna have
shift
to come back.
squared. I'm
Shift
here
time,
for it.
shift part two in later in the season.
Yeah, yeah.
How can people connect with you? I want to make sure I also give you an opportunity to plug in your services and how they can connect with
Oh,
you.
thank you. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, if you're interested in bringing these kinds of conversations and perspectives to the way that you attract, engage, and retain talent, shaker.com, where we build global employer brands, recruitment marketing, martech, and analytic strategies for people trying to, you know, bring the top talent to their organizations and keep them.
Wow.
Additionally, in a way that centers humanity, by the way. So, additionally, speaking
You are,
engagements,
you
I'm
are,
always
you
on.
are a humanity practitioner, right? Is that the framing
I
you
am a
use?
humanity practitioner. Yes, yes, and I'm pushing that, and that's we didn't talk about that today, but yes, maybe that's a follow up. But yes, from a humanity practitioner perspective, we center humanity in the work we do. Additionally, speaking engagements, I'm on LinkedIn actively. You can visit plantationtheory.com for my book, and you can request me as a speaker as well there. I do a lot of work with ERGs, especially around Black History Month, which this year it's about African Americans and labor. Plantation theory, labor, cost of the climb, labor. There's some obvious through lines there. We should talk if you're interested and still don't have your speakers set up for Black History Month or Juneteenth. But otherwise,
I,
LinkedIn,
you
I'm
should
easy to
have
find.
your speakers lined up for Black History Month by now. Anyone who's listen to all my event planners out there in the world, I know that virtual events have gotten us lazy, but come on,
But
2 weeks
Mark, what do we
out.
say about the word should? What do we say about that? Should will leave you disappointed every time.
Could
Just
you
saying.
please do better? How about that? Could you
Could
please?
you please do better? I love that. That's a very
Yeah.
positive, affirmative,
Let's
future forward
reframe that.
statement.
Let's reframe that. Could we do better
There it
about
is.
speakers and being intentional with our planning? I mean, this whole post-pandemic event speaker stuff.
It's like
Listen,
you got a week and a half to figure this out, apparently, and
okay,
it comes every year. Anyway, no
right.
judgment. I get
No,
it. Life is
no
life is
judgment.
lifing.
No
So
judgment, but
yes,
judging.
but
Okay.
judgment. Yes.
But judging.
we,
John, thank you so much for being an incredible human, for being
likewise,
a
Mark.
fantastic leader, a great storyteller, if I may say so myself.
Thank you,
And
my friend.
I'm just honored to exist in your orbit. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I always say time is the one currency you can't get back. So I appreciate you
Hey,
sharing some of that time with me today.
the pleasure is mine, Mark. Thank you for being gorgeous inside and out. Glam, killing it. Face beat. Let's go. And
Yes.
thank you for the platform, the conversation, the doors you open through connectivity, and very intentional and thoughtful listening and delivery. So thank you. You're amazing.
Be well.
You as well. Cheers.
Cheers.